Probably wondering what you can learn from a philosophy and IT double major who graduated and decided to go full time into IT and start a tech business that helps people. But I actually have something to offer. Um, I first went to college and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I was a music major and I went to a philosophy course and I was like, um, this is actually kind of lit. My philosophy teacher kind of talks to me towards the end of the semester and she was like, you'd really be good with philosophy. I was like, I don't know what that means. How are you good at philosophy? And over the course of time, I learned because everyone kind of like shits on philosophy, which is fine. But they say it's like a broke person's type of major. But ironically, philosophy really encompasses nearly everything. Like, you could have a philosophy major and be good at business, tech, finance, um, you know, many other places. It can, like science. You could apply that to social studies. Like, it applies to so many different things. And the reason why is because three of the main things about philosophy is critical thinking, problem solving, logic. Then you go into ethics, acting ethically, thinking of morals, thinking of values. And that applies to a lot of different things. And adding that to IT really made me realize like how much they overlap. At the time, everyone was like, that's such a weird combo. Because you think of tech and then you think of philosophy. The philosophy is kind of like the sociology, psychology type of vibe that people think about. But more and more people are looking for a cross like that because they know that you can think critically. And one of the biggest things about being a philosophy major and IT is that IT is literally about thinking critically. I mean, it's problem solving, it's thinking about the problem, figuring out all the different trains of kind of thought and processes until you fix that problem. And that's literally what philosophy is. I took a formal logic course, and formal logic helped me with programming because logic and programming go hand in hand. And I was able to pass programming using my philosophy course. Um, and it also adds ethics to just how tech works. Um, there's a lot going on in tech. The better and faster and smarter it gets, the more that it can really cause problems in ethics. We've seen it before. We've seen things like selling data. We see things like fraud, like in crypto. We see things in the digital space that aren't ethical. Even scanning a face, putting it into a database, AI, gathering that info, and things like just straight up scams. And learning how to navigate artificial intelligence, business ethics, how to, get customers in a way that's actually honest is not the best or the easiest sometimes. And so I went into philosophy and I went into IT. And at first I thought that I was confused, but I actually wasn't. It helped me so much to do both. It really changed my perspective on things. And so starting my IT business while doing my full time, I realized that there's so many better things I could be doing besides just trying to make a profit. And I think that's this part of the brain kind of working on that, thinking about how to lend a hand, nonprofit, charity, low cost, no cost things. I think about how little some of the places near me have access to technology. I think about other places that don't have access to technology. I think about people who have tons of money exploiting money and taking money from people who don't. And I honestly think that there's an argument to be said, devil's advocate, argument to be said that people need to profit and that you're not exploiting people if you are trying to get paid fairly for your services. And I don't disagree with that per se, but there's a very obvious exploitation factor to many businesses, many services. And I think that's where the philosophy comes in. People value ethics more than we think. We hear a lot about the bad, but we don't always hear about the good. And there's more good, I believe. You may not agree with me, but in terms of like e-waste and recycling and refurbishing and how this world works, I figured that I could take that knowledge, I could take my technical skills, and put them together. Because philosophy is a lot of soft skills. Tech is a lot of soft skills. You have to be good with people up to a point. You can be a director. Well, directors still talk to people, but you could be like a network engineer or something. You don't really interface with people much, but if you're in IT, like a specialist, like support, if you are front facing, customer facing, which you typically are, especially in, I work in the finance space. I've worked in the manufacturing space. I've worked in different spaces. More often than not, you're gonna talk to people, and you have to be able to have the soft skills to read their problem, read their language, understand what you kind of need to get from them to be able to help them with their problem. And you have to be able to mitigate bad feelings, negative feelings, because tech is annoying, especially for people who are non-technical users. And so those soft skills of philosophy, being able to read people, being able to come to a conclusion, troubleshooting, thinking critically, being patient with the trains of thought and thinking that you need to be able to solve their problem, plus the technical know-how and skill to be able to solve that problem, they go together so well. Philosophy goes really well with programming. So if you're thinking about programming, which I'm not sure about in this climate, but it did go well with it. And so I really wanted to take all of that to say that things that interest you and things that make you think are so much more important than people lead on. And it turns out that doing philosophy in IT was a really good decision for me because I learned so much about how to interface with people, how to figure out problems, especially in the IT business, because you're dealing with different problems every day. You're dealing with remote support. Sometimes you can't quite see what the person is doing on their computer. You only see the monitor, you only see their computer, right? You can't see what they are doing. Sometimes when they try to explain something to you, you may not understand, but you have to deduce the parts that lead you to the point where you can figure out their problem. And so a lot of times you'll have something like a person who calls and they say, my monitor's not turning on. They called you and they said their monitor is not turning on, right? So you have to be able to ask questions without being irritating. You have to be able to deduce what they're gonna say. You have to say, well, don't ask if it's plugged in first. Honestly, I don't do that because people always expect you to ask that if they're non-technical. You say, well, what were you doing before it turned off? First question, right? You go on from there. You make a tree of thoughts. Oh, so you were working on something and just shut off? Is your computer running? Like, is it on right now, but the monitor's off? Are there cables in? Do you see an HDMI cable? It's the one kind of sticking in the back, has a weird little end, that type of thing. You don't want to be overzealous because it's possible to be asking a question and kind of being a lot. You don't want to throw technical jargon. You don't want to ask a lot of questions quickly. You want to ask the question and listen. That is a whole different thing in itself. It applies to a lot of things, but philosophy teaches you how to ask questions, and IT helps you troubleshoot and figure it out. So they work real well together. So when you're thinking about something like an IT business or just getting into IT or even getting into technical skills like engineering or whatnot, it's actually super helpful because one of the biggest things that technical people like to do is solve problems. And that's literally so much of philosophy. So I thought it was a good idea. You may not have thought you could learn something from somebody who actually studied philosophy, but maybe you did. I'm Mac from MM Label, and I'll see you later.